Hey special family, welcome back to another video. So today's video is titled Special Need Resources. It's gonna be a two-part video because it will be pretty long and I have a short attention span, so I don't want to do that to you. So part one are gonna talk about some of the main resources that you can tap into, and part two is going to focus on the non-comp waiver, because these are some important things that we as special need parents can benefit from, and it's only fair to let you guys know that these things do exist and they can help you now or in the future. So let's get into the video and see what it's about. Hey special family, so I found a presentation on YouTube that I'll link the link below, that goes over most of the Medicaid and special need resources that we as special need parents can use. So I'll let the presentation play, and if there's something I'll interject, but it touched on most of the stuff that I wanted you guys to know about. So let's get into the presentation.
Getting eligibility for Medicaid is how you get eligibility for the remainder of these services. Everything else I'm going to talk about tonight is predicated on the fact that folks will have Medicaid. There's kind of three pathways into that, and we'll hit on them. But this is why we spend a little bit of time talking about it. So Medicaid is a jointly funded federal and state health insurance program. Folks at DCH love that we mention it's a health insurance program. All the other services that they provide go back to that need for health insurance. The coverage is for children, people who are elderly. There's some women in there who can get special services, but then also people with disabilities of lower income who require access to healthcare services. So you got to be in one of those categories of people that Medicaid is designed to cover. We've already said it's administered by the Department of Community Health, and the determination for eligibility starts in the Division of Family and Children Services. That eligibility is based on household income and disability. So we're going to talk about both of those things as being the way in the front door, right? But you're listening about Medicaid tonight because it's the way to get to the rest of these services. I'm mostly going to leave this up here quickly.
Okay, so before we get into that, I've always told you guys, always check and make sure if your child is eligible for Medicaid once you get a diagnosis. This is the reason why, because if you want to take advantage of most of these benefits, or most of these what's the word for it, resources, yeah, that's the word I'm trying to think of. If you want to take advantage of these resources, the first thing is, do you have Medicaid? So that's the reason why it's very important. And there are two types of Medicaid. One is called the Deeming Waiver, or the Beckett waiver, and that's also a form of Medicaid where they don't go based off income, but you'll get into that.
So you can see that it's there, but there are several ways to apply for Medicaid, and this will come to you in your slides. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about it, because then we're going to
just remember that most of these slides is based off of Georgia. I live in Georgia, so that's all I know, but other states have the same thing too.
Talk about Peach Care and SSI and all those sorts of things, but just know this will be in your slides. Uh-oh. Somebody's got a hold to the whiteboard. Peach Care for Kids is a comprehensive healthcare program for children under 18. Folks are eligible until their 19th birthday who are uninsured and meet some poverty guidelines. It goes over what a family can earn, and it's administered by DCH, but there are other care management organizations that are out there, right? And so this is, for a lot of people, the typical way that kids would get access to Medicaid, right? Then we have this other program called the Deeming Waiver, used to be referred to, or sometimes referred to as the Katie Beckett waiver. And the main thing to understand here is that this is a program that helps get Medicaid benefits to children who qualify as disabled, but their family income is too high, right? So unlike traditional routes to Medicaid, Peach Care, SSI, Medicaid, those sorts of things, family income matters, right? We just looked at that. There were some family income numbers here. But the deeming waiver doesn't include that, right? It focuses on the needs of the child so that the child can remain at home with their family and avoid institutionalization. Because for some people, if they couldn't get access to this form of Medicaid, their child would end up in a nursing facility or some sort of other program. And prior to the child's 18th birthday, it's a really good idea to reapply for SSI because that's going to switch. The whole rule around family income changes at that point. We'll talk a little bit about that in another second.
Okay, before she goes into the next slide, I just want to give some takeaway notes on that last slide. It's called the Katie Beckett waiver. If you have been denied as a special need parent for Medicaid, regular Medicaid, go and apply for the Deeming Waiver or the Katie Beckett waiver. That's how I know it. The Katie Beckett waiver. That one doesn't go with income. It's based on the child's diagnosis. And once the child turns 18, that child is considered an adult. So because if that child was denied because of your income as a parent or as a household, when that child is 18, your income doesn't count anymore. So that child becomes eligible for SSI. That's why always make sure that once the child is 18 or above, you reapply for SSI if you were denied because of your income.
So I want to go back for 1 second to this slide and just say that, like I told you, there were 3 pathways in, right? You can apply just based on your income, right? So that would be pretty much Peach Care for Kids, kind of the traditional route. Whenever you are found eligible for SSI, you automatically qualify for Medicaid. Yes. So if a family has sought SSI for a child with a disability, there's a determination about Medicaid included in that as well. And if someone might not qualify for those reasons because of family income, you have the option to apply for the deeming waiver. It doesn't matter what type of Medicaid folks are accessing when it comes to children, because the goal is to get through the door, right? Get the Medicaid so you can get the services.
Yep.
All right. So why? Why does this matter? Well, the biggest reason this matters is because children under 21 who are Medicaid eligible, that's why we got to get through the door, have access to the biggest array of healthcare services of any program ever. Right? Because within the Medicaid Act, it says that state Medicaid programs must provide services and equipment to eligible children as prescribed by their treating physician when the service is medically necessary to correct or ameliorate that child's condition. So this says no matter what Georgia's state plan is, no matter what Georgia's Medicaid policy offers, no matter what, if a child is under the age of 21 and eligible for Medicaid, they have access to every service that their doctor says is medically necessary for them.
Yes.
So this is why it's important for children with disabilities, especially, to get through the front door of Medicaid, because it opens up a really, really broad array of services for folks. We always like to point out that this ameliorate word doesn't mean cure, but just means it's going to keep things from getting worse and improve upon or even maintain the best possible condition. Sometimes folks are worried about that. Like, my kid has a chronic condition, nothing's going to make it get better. Well, even if we can keep it stable, that's important. So some of the services that meet this criteria are things like therapy or skilled nursing, vision, and dental services. The services are based on the child's needs, determined by their doctor, and not by predetermined limits in the state policy, right? So it's a really robust way to get services, especially for children with disability. It can include a health check, right? So if you've applied for Medicaid, you've gotten through the door, and you have reason to believe that your child has motor or cognitive or behavioral functioning challenges that no one else has really been able to help you get access to, well, then you can get screened for that based on this law, based on EPSDT. If your child is determined to have that healthcare need, then you have to do some things. There's always some hoops to jump through. One of them is you have to get what's called a letter of medical necessity. It's just a statement.
Okay, that letter of medical necessity, she's saying it's just a statement, but it's that one thing I've always been telling you guys: make sure you have a diagnosis. That is our autism parents' letter of medical necessity. That autism diagnosis needs to be in a file on your desktop, because from here on out, once you get your diagnosis, the first thing they ask you for, even when you apply for Medicaid, where is the diagnosis? They want to see the diagnosis. You go to the autism center, diagnosis. You see this durable medical equipment assistive technology? Because of Medicaid, you can get that. And please apply for Medicaid. If that's the first thing you do it. Apply for Medicaid, because one assistive technology costs $8,500. And an example of an assistive technology is a communication device for our nonverbal kids. And I'm pretty sure we don't have $8,500 laying around to buy assistive devices. So please get your diagnosis, apply for Medicaid.
From the doctor explaining certain things. We're going to go over that in a minute. And then there's some division of medical assistance paperwork that you have to fill out. And it's also, I should have put these in a different order, but durable medical equipment and assistive technology can also be covered by this service as well, right? So if your child needs something like, they mentioned orthotics or prosthetics here, or a wheelchair, or, special splints, those things can be covered if they meet the criteria. Oop. So some services and equipment may require prior authorization, but that doesn't mean that they won't be covered. They must be determined to be medical in nature. So you can't get things like people say, well, my kid has asthma and it's hot in Georgia in the South, I want an air conditioner, or an air conditioner isn't medical in nature. It must be generally recognized as an acceptable medical practice or treatment. It can't be experimental or investigational. It must be related as safe and effective. The letters of medical necessity have to include all diagnoses, right? So any diagnosis that the child has, if there's a prognosis that goes along with that, the way it's expected to affect the child in the future, it should include that. This language is really important. It is being prescribed as medically necessary to correct or ameliorate, and then list what condition, right? That's super important. The doctor must tell us the amount and frequency of the service or supplies or equipment being prescribed. So the child maybe has a G-tube, how much formula, how often, those sorts of things. The duration, how long we expect this is going to happen. And it's usually between 90 and 120 days, and then things have to be reevaluated. And then the scope or intensity. So how much of this service might a child need to receive?
Okay, let me just get in there. The letter of medical necessity. Remember I told you guys that Ramsey has a diaper company? If your child is 4 years old or older and your child is in diapers and you have Medicaid, your child is eligible for free diapers, which are being paid for by Medicaid. I'll go ahead and show you the company that I use. In order to be eligible for these free diapers, resources, I told you if I know something, I'm going to let you know. The doctor, so you'll call the company up. I like to call companies. I don't like to email them. You'll call the company up. They'll send your doctor this letter of medical necessity with all this stuff on it, because your doctor has a copy of the diagnosis, your child's diagnosis, and to confirm that what you told them is true. They'll have the doctor fill all this stuff out. And then once the doctor fills it out and sends it to the diaper company will then send it to Medicaid. Now, this process to be approved for the diapers takes about 30 to 45 days. I'm not even lying to you. But once you get it for as long as you need it and as long as you have Medicaid. The problem is every 90 to 120 days, you need renewal, or if your child changes diaper size. And the renewal can take another 30 days because your doctor's office is slow. Then it becomes a problem of your doctor office. Maybe they didn't write the correct amount or the correct date you last went in, all of that plays a role. You'll see that very nitpick things play a role. The date, the code, the last date of visit, the code, how much he'll need, what the diagnosis is, all of that. Once it's properly filled out by your doctor, they'll resubmit it again through Medicaid, which can take another 2 weeks. And that's why it takes a month or 45 days. So I'll show you, if you're in Georgia, this is the company I use for diapers for Ramsey. Every couple of months it changes because we've already had 4 companies. Some companies go out of business, but they don't leave you stranded. They forward your information to the next company, let the company do the pickup, and then once you're approved and everything is a go for that company, then they stop sending you Pampers and you get from the new company now. So they don't just leave you stranded. This is the company that I use now. It's called Home Care Delivered. This is their phone number up here. And for new customer and current customer, if you're in Georgia, you have a child that's 4 years old or older with special need, you can get free diapers if they're not potty trained and other home supplies. These are all the products that they give for diabetes, incontinence, urology, wound care, ostomy, and additional supplies. I'm not too sure what the additional supplies are, but I'll put a link to this website in the description below just in case somebody could use it that is in Georgia, because trust me, my inbox is full and I want to make it as easy for you guys as possible so you can get in touch with these people so you can use these services. Okay, let's keep going. I just wanted to share that with you guys, that this is the company that I use. All right, let's see what she's saying.
Super important. Not everything's going to get approved on the first time. You might have to go through an appeals process. What's important to know about here is what to look for in your denial letter. It has to give you information. It has to let you know if they are requesting additional information, and it has to include the mailing address to which your appeal should be submitted. You have to appeal in writing within 30 days of receipt of the written notice, and the state has 90 days to make a final determination. This is based on
always appeal,
requesting things like through the process of EPSDT. So that's really important that you understand those timelines in case you get denials. I also want to bring up just briefly that a broad category of services that EPSDT can help folks get access to is communication. We see people with disabilities who have spent long periods of their life in school systems and in service systems and still don't have access to really robust, meaningful.
Okay, this is the part where you get your notes or notebook if you have a child that's nonverbal, special needs, and this is the part to let you know how you can get a communication device. In autism world, they like to use this term AAC, or augmentative and alternative communication. Trust me, all these little acronyms that you see, they use it on a daily basis. So get familiar with these acronyms. But when you see AAC, you know it's for communication device. And she's going to tell you how you can get this communication device. Pay attention, without any cost to you. So pay attention.
Communication. That shouldn't happen to children in Georgia. They have access to be able to get screened for and get connected with alternative and augmentative communication devices. We see that as super important as a way to safeguard and prevent abuse or neglect, right? Because if something's happening to you and you can't tell anybody, or even if we see evidence of that, but you can't communicate that to people, there are plenty of times where we see law enforcement not pursuing things because a person doesn't have communication. And that is like the basement level bar, right? I wouldn't want to spend my life not being able to communicate my needs and wishes and desires, especially when there's a technology there to help me do that. And so there's more ways to get some information about augmentative communication there. The child has to be evaluated by a speech language pathologist, but you need to ask that person, are you skilled in evaluating people for communication devices? Like, do you have expertise in communication? There are plenty of SLPs out there that do really good work, but they do a lot around swallowing and tongue placement and those sorts of things. But you're looking for someone specifically related to these evaluations for communication devices. Super, super important. So I'm going to pause here for just a second. We've covered a ton.
I'm going to pause here too. Just a takeaway from the last slide. Make sure you don't just have a regular speech language pathologist, which is a speech therapist. Remember, she said SLP. Those are the terms you'll hear. So when you hear SLP, she means speech language pathologist, speech therapist. Make sure they know how or are allowed to do assessment for communication devices. Because if you have one that does not do that, they can't help you get a communication device. So you need to find one that does do that. So make sure your speech therapy company assist in getting your child a communication device. Okay, so this is the end of part 1, and tomorrow I'll release part 2 so that you're not too overwhelmed with all this information. But part 2 will talk more about now and comp waiver, which is very, very beneficial to us. So I do want you guys to pay attention to that, especially parents, because a lot of us are walking around here and we don't know the resources that are available to us. So please come back tomorrow for part 2 so that you are aware of the now and comp waiver and what benefit it has to you. All right, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.